What is the worst way someone's asked you to leave after sex? Go grab some Taco Bell. You can eat it on your way home. My roommate's almost home, so you should leave, unless you want to asterisk him too. While dozing off, he gently tapped my shoulder and said, "Maribel, you can't stay here." My name is not Maribel. Me and my now ex-husband were separated, but were trying to go on dates with each other still, and I thought we were working through some things. I went to his place and we hooked up. Afterwards I was sitting on his couch asking him if he wanted to catch a movie or something, when he opened his front door and actually made this sweeping gesture with his arm and said, "You need to go, I have a date." So yeah, that made me finally realize it was time to file the divorce papers. I made the comment afterwards that I was surprised that she didn't want me to wear a condom. We were in our early 30s. Her response was, "My husband won't give me another child, so I'm hoping to get pregnant without him." When I told her that I had had a vasectomy 10 years earlier, she told me to leave lol. Question mark? Edit. Holy asterisk. I really didn't expect this comment to blow up like it did. This really did happen with a coworker, and I would have been happy to have kids with her if she had been single. However, I met my second wife a couple of years later and had a very good 17 years until I lost her from illness. An old friend invited me over for her famous beef stew. I got there, we fool around, had sex. Then right after she handed me a Tupperware of the stew and said, "You got sex and stew. Now please leave." Still not sure if that's the worst way I was kicked out or the best. He was at my house, so he was the one leaving 5 minutes of 6. He came, I thought he was going to finish me off. Nope, he gets up, starts putting his clothes on, and says, after a yawn, "Well, I don't mean to skeet and yeet, but I better get home." Excuse me. Before coming over, I asked if the intention was for me to spend the night. He enthusiastically said yes. Immediately after the act he said, "I think I'd actually rather spend the night alone." I took the hint and ended the relation soon after. We were dry humping, fully clothed, no hand stuff, and came. After a couple seconds he asked me to leave cause he was tired. Then he walked me to the door with his cum pants. A girl I was FWBs with rolled over while still naked, farted in my direction, and told me to lock the front door on my way out. We were good friends for a few years, before hooking up after a night of drinking. Halfway through sex he told me he can't actually do this, because he wanted to get back with his ex, and can't mess it up, because she's the hottest girl he'll ever be with. He lived in the middle of nowhere, and I couldn't leave until the morning, so he made me sleep on the couch. Oh, this is mortifying, but I'll share. I got so drunk and hooked up with a delicious man from work. After all was said and done, I started trying to gather my stuff in the dark, really quietly so I could do a sneak out. He woke up, asked me what I was doing. I explained I had a great time, but I needed to get home. I had a meeting in the morning that was important and thanks for everything, etc. He then informed me we were at my place and that he would leave if that's what I wanted. I was so embarrassed and hungover I just said, "Yes, that's smart, you'll want to get your sleep." So, he left. Ugh. Post-coitus, he stood up, lit a cigarette, and said, "I don't really think this is gonna work out." I have a friend who a mom he met at the skate park, and when they were done she heard the garage open, so she hurried up and dressed him and put him in front of the computer. The husband comes in, and the wife says, "Honey, this young man was just fixing our computer." The husband says, "Oh, thanks bud." Hands my friend $50 while he was still sweaty from this dude's wife. He left very shortly after. Asked me to stay and cuddle her until she falls asleep, then leave because she didn't want me sleeping there. It was like 3 AM. Hey, can you be dressed and ready to go in like 5 minutes? My fiance's plane already landed and I was supposed to pick him up half an hour ago. Then she asked me which route was the fastest to get to the airport. This was more than 10 years ago, and I still feel bad for that poor guy. I'm sorry, but you'll have to catch a bus or something cause I've got work in the morning, so I can't drop you off. Distance from the bar to her place was about 45 minutes. We went in her car. She told me this at about 1 in the morning. Basically asterisk I in the middle of asterisk 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 NOWHERE asterisk. Longest walk home ever, or very Messex. Post sesh, I lean over and see a photograph of the young lady and a man in military uniform on the nightstand. Me, oh, who's that? Your brother? Huh, no, that's my boyfriend. He'll be home tomorrow. Me, dressed and gone. 5 AM at a random girl's house I met at the club and we are hooking up, and I try to talk a little dirty, and I go tell me what you want, and it's yours, and she goes I want you to finish, because I'm done and I'm tired. Went home with a girl from the bar. After we had sex, she said something like so, think you can get an Uber now? If not, I guess you can sleep on the couch for a few hours. Here I was, sitting on some random girl's couch trying to find an Uber at 4 AM. Mercifully I did find one, and when the guy picked me up he said so, your cop kick you out. I said is it that obvious, and he replied you weren't the first one I drove back to their car tonight and you probably won't be the last. His crazy ex came banging his door screaming she knew he had somebody in there, and that she was gonna kill me, not him. This dude was panicking, and told me the only way out is through the window. I packed my stuff real quick, and jumped from a window 2 meters above ground, and trespassed like 5 backyards and fences, until I made it to a main street, while FaceTiming a friend cause asterisk 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 was funny, and super scary haha. Oh boy. So this was my first time actually hanging out one-on-one with this guy, who had been sending me flirty messages for months. We fool around in bed, comes. He says he's going to the bathroom to clean up, and will be back in a minute or two. I wait. I hear the TV turn on in his living room. He starts watching a Civil War documentary. I asked if he was done hanging out in bed, or if he was coming back. He tells me to stop yelling at him. I genuinely still don't know if he was sarcastic or not, but it didn't sound like it. He sounded serious. I definitely wasn't yelling haha. I get dressed, come out of his room, and sit on the couch for a few minutes in silence while he watches his Civil War documentary. I leave for the night and he awkwardly walks me to my car. For some reason, I asked him for a goodbye hug, and his body was as stiff and cold as a wooden board. He was not into it. It was honestly mildly upsetting, confusing, and uncomfortable. On the way home he sends me a message saying that next time we should have a sleepover. Like what? I laughed my ass off and deleted his number. It was the weirdest and strongest implication of time for you to go I've ever experienced. This actually happened. I used to clean apartments in college. I used to clean an apartment for a young doctor who always had women in and out of his apartment. One day he had 2 young women in his bed. It was my job. He paid me $100 per woman to tell them the following: hello, my name is blah, blah, and I'm the housekeeper. Dr. Blah enjoyed your company and thanks you. Feel free to grab snacks and a go-to coffee on your way out. You have 15 minutes. Okay, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring of fire, because this is something asterisk I asterisk said. I was going through a time in my early 20s where men were a little disposable to me. Wanted to find love, but all I was finding were assholes that just wanted to sleep around. I met Alex on a dating site. We chatted for a bit, texted for a bit, and then met up for a coffee/walk. Afterwards, he more or less ghosted me. I ended up moving out of the city in this time and approximately 2 hours away. One night, asterisk ding asterisk I get a text from Alex. It's late. The usual, what have you been up to? You busy now? I tell him that, while I'm not busy, I do live 2 hours away now. He says that's fine. He wants to see me, asks for the new address, and sure enough, comes by about 2 hours later. We have sex for the first time. It wasn't anything to write home about. Afterwards, he getting comfy and looks to be drifting to sleep in my bed. So, ask him if he'll be hungry in the morning. His eyes lit up, like damn, I ghosted this girl for months, hit her up for 6, and then she's going to make me breakfast? He emphatically says yes. I said that he'd better take off then, because I wouldn't be feeding him. And that's the story of how I kicked a booty call out of my bed, 2 hours away from his home, at like 3:30 in the morning. Can you leave before my next one comes in? Her kids started banging on the door and I hid in the closet until it was clear to go. I had been hooking up with this guy for a month or two. It was the middle of a terrible snowstorm and I was right around the corner from him at a hockey game. He hit me up and I walked there after because it was easier than trying to go home. He had a little bit of a cold. We hooked up. I fell asleep. Woke up to him coughing. I turned over and he looks me in the eyes and said I can't really sleep because of this cold and I also want to spread out a little bit. I go is this you asking me to leave right now? And his response was I just have a lot to do tomorrow, so I got dressed and ordered an Uber at 3 AM in the middle of one of the worst snowstorms. It took me over an hour to go 3 miles home. That Uber driver was my damn homie. Only guy out there at that hour, and he was so nice. It took him 20 minutes to even get to the guy's apt. The following weekend he drunk called me 10 times and I just texted him and said kick rocks. Middle of an orgy, 5 people in total, one gent stood up, punched a nearby dresser, and said this was a mistake, everyone get out. We all gathered our clothes in the dark and shuffled out. At the time I thought it was hilarious. We got bagels, sans the gent, afterwards. Would recommend after every orgy. During sex actually. Are you going to be much longer? Because CSI is about to come on. Question mark? I was putting my heels back on and held out my hands for a little support because balance sucks. They go, what do you want, money? Wow, that was fun. I have no more use for you now, so please leave. She dapped me up and said later, yeah, animal, with the weirdest smirk on her face. Glad I gave her a good time though, lol. The second he came, he rolled over, grabbed his phone, and without even looking at me said, find your clothes, you know where the door is, and just laid there on his phone ignoring me while I gathered my clothes and left. He tried texting me a few days later because he was drunk and horny, so I told him, you know where your hand is, and blocked him. He finished, got off me, started looking at pictures of other women on Instagram and commenting on how much more attractive they were than me, and told me, oh yeah, you can go now. We were best friends for like 2 years up until that moment. Met a girl on Tinder and we hit it off after speaking for 3 weeks or so. Went on a few dates and I really liked her. Think it was the 3rd date, I spent the night at hers and we had sex for the first time. It had been 3 or 4 months since I last had sex, and I really fancied this girl, so naturally I finished in about 0.3 of a second. Pretty embarrassing. I stayed the night, but ended up waking up early, like 6 or 7 AM, and looked over and saw her wide awake, that look of what have I done on her face. It felt really awkward, so I just said do you want me to leave? Yes, please, she said, instantly. I awkwardly got dressed, said goodbye and drove home, miserable, thinking I'd blown it. She phoned me later that day wondering when we were seeing each other next. Turns out she had been desperate for a **** and was scared to go with me there, so made me leave at 6 AM. We've been together 3.5 years now, engaged, and planning on getting married soon. A girl kicked me out of own apartment once. She was on the rebound from a serious relationship, and I was chronically available back then. We had been seeing each other casually for a while, but she had messaged me in the middle of the day with a kind of cancel everything call to action. I dutifully agreed. We were in bed after, literally heavy breathing after, and she simply said, right, that's sus done. Apparently she had realized that she was now over her ex, and if she continued seeing me like this she was likely to develop feelings that she was fully aware I wasn't going to reciprocate. So she booted me out to take a shower and said to come back in a half hour. She was gone, and we never saw each other again. I honestly think it was the most impressive breakup of all time. She was right, I was a disaster and a complete commitment phobe. Ironically, it made me totally smitten with her. This didn't happen to me, but a friend, F, told me about the time she went over to someone's house for a booty call. His parents ended up coming home early, so he opened his window, picked her and her clothes up, and tossed her and her clothes straight out of the window. I knew I shouldn't have laughed at her. But I knew an electrician that put her exit sign above his bedroom door and would flip a switch to turn it on after sex. She just started crying and would not stop. It was the night I lost my virginity. So not me, and not exactly what you were asking, but here goes. I used to live with 3 other guys, but spent most of my time and nights other places, usually partying my nose off. I came home one morning to grab some work clothes and the like, and my roommate was sitting on the couch with a girl he had hooked up with the night before. They were watching TV, and she was cuddled up with him. I grabbed my stuff and was on my way back out the door, and he asked, "Oh hey, do you mind taking her home?" She looked totally blindsided and asked if he was serious. He just sort of shrugged and said, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna take a nap or something, so you can leave." She just silently went and grabbed her stuff. As soon as we were in my truck she just burst into tears. Most awkward 10 minutes of my life. Asked if he could drive my car to the gas station to buy cigarettes, and when he came back he told me he left my keys in the car and it was running. This happened not so long ago, and it's still embarrassing. I was speaking to someone on Tinder, just a normal conversation. She then gave me her address and said come over right now and bring protection. So I'm like, do I go die or stay here and say no? Being a Redditor, I want to die, so I went there. I started by going down on her as any man should, and then she finishes in about 2 to 3 minutes. She then tells me to go home. I drove a 30-mile round trip to eat her out and be told to leave. Blue bold like asterisk asterisk asterisk. This happened in college cultural event. We fooled around and had sex. She got up, dressed up, high-fived me and said, "Good job, dude." This happened 6 years back, and I can't say to this day that was it a sarcasm, or was I really good. Not after but before he penetrated, he said, "Ugh. I need coffee. Can't do this." So we left immediately after arriving to his place, and he dropped me off at a bus stop an hour away from my place. I blocked him from the app after that. Lady right above us dumped a bucket of mop water on us. Turns out that the secret patch of grass I found wasn't as discreet as we thought, because we forgot to look up. We were 17. I asked this chick if I could get her an Uber home. She told me to go asterisk 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 myself and said I could drive her home. I ended up marrying her. The joke is after shooting the Uber down she just never left. I didn't get asked to leave, I told her to leave. In no uncertain terms I told her if she didn't leave she would be in the hospital by morning. Now, before you get angry at me, it's important for you to know why I did this. What did she do? She stabbed me in the thigh with a small pocket knife mid-coitus. She thought she was being kinky, and I would like it. At no point did I tell this woman I enjoyed pain, during sex or otherwise. To say I was furious would be an understatement. And I quote, "I don't do breakfast." They didn't say anything. I got to their apartment, and he had everything ready, condoms and lube. We were fooling around for an hour and I could tell he wasn't getting into it. Then we had a really awkward conversation and I left. Funny thing is he thought I was cute at one time and sought me out to come over. but then he decided he wasn't feeling it when I got there. I need to work in 5 minutes please, put your clothes on and leave. Not exactly the same thing, but I was on my first night of study abroad, and I went home with this Danish guy. He was too pushy and desperate, so we didn't have sex. In the morning, he was being fresh/cranky. It was my first week in the country and I didn't know how to go home. Asked him how I should get back, and he suggested I grab hold of a seagull and fly home, and that was full on the end of the conversation. I've never had to leave, the guys always did the leaving, but after the worst hookup I'd had, without a word, I just walked to the front door, opened it, and he left. We said goodbye, and exchanged niceties about keeping in touch, because we had gone to high school together, and hadn't spoken in years until matching on Tinder. But it was all asterisk and we both knew it. She said her husband is getting out of work any minute and it's, and I quote, probably not a good idea that he finds me there. I want to watch UGIO and my mom is about to be home, so you'll have to climb out my window and I'll see you tomorrow at work. Dude was a cowwalker that was 6/7 years older than my then 19-year-old self. I assumed I was spending the night because he gave me a t-shirt to put on. Can you find your way back to your car? You can wear the shirt home I guess, but you can't keep it. You don't give it back, I'm sending you an invoice. Make sure not to leave any clothes here, my girlfriend is moving in tomorrow. One he told me he had broken up with a month before. Tossed her panties at me and said, you can keep those. Lock the door behind you. This is slightly off topic and second hand, but Q friend of mine, male, was a bit of a player. He pulled a girl on a night out and dropped her home the day after. As she is padding up the drive heels in hand her dad comes to the front door. My friend sticks a big grin on his face then cheerily waves at her dad who reflexively waves back and clearly catches himself and puts his arm down and looks furious. Always admired that power move. I once left in the middle of absolute terrible sober sex with a one-time Tinder hookup. I made an excuse to go to the bathroom and took off instead. Sometimes I feel bad about the situation, but I was pretty young and just out of an abusive relationship, so when the vibes were off, my anxiety kicked in and I took flight. Night of my 21st birthday. Just had got back with my girlfriend after she had broke up with me 2 months before. Went to meet her in her university flat. Went out with her friends and then back to hers. In the middle of 6, she just turned around to me as I was trying my best doggy style and said, I want to go out with other men as well as you. Sort of ruined the moment. As I got out of her, she said if that doesn't suit, leave. So I was wandering around the city, drunk, depressed, with nowhere to go at 3 AM on my 21st birthday. I can remember every single minute of that night years and years later. When their daughter is the one telling you. My ex had a flashback to the person that raped her while we were having sex. She stopped and closed her legs, went into a fetal position, and had a panic attack. She asked me to leave when she could speak, and that was the last time I saw her. I wish her well. Trauma like that is hard to live with. Goddamn, as a newly single guy in his early 30s this thread's a nightmare. Mayo. Thanks. Just a heads up, I have another guy coming over in like 90 minutes, so do you mind getting out? She didn't ask, but related. Have sex on the couch. She falls asleep there and won't wake up. We already decided that I would say over. To get into the bed. Cat litter and cat asterisk all over the bed. Left immediately to get the first train home.